Springfield's Talk 1041, and hello, good morning, everyone. How do you do? Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Okay, just to get all set up here. A lot of activity over the weekend. A lot of news being made. It was a return for Trump to Butler, Pennsylvania, in which he was insistent, even the podium being the exact same place it was on that day in July that he was shot, commemorating the exact moment with a moment of silence. It was quite an event. I mean, a massive sea of people. I haven't seen any head count on it. Have you seen any? I'm kind of surprised. Did you see the crowd?
I did see the crowd, but
Yeah.
I really loved the part where he brought that chart back up.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
turned and he looked at it and he said, "And as I was saying."
Yeah. We've got some of the audio, his opening of it, which was fantastic. Also, one of the nurses that was in the hospital, in which he was rushed after being shot, spoke. Doctor, one of the doctors who worked on the other victims, he spoke as well. And Elon Musk spoke, which I was interested to see that because the nature of his personality is one that is not generally considered to be that of somebody that would be a public speaker in front of a large crowd of people, and but he's so well received, and so we'll play some of his comments also, and of course the continuing people shake their heads in amazement at the continued complete utter disaster of a response from this administration when it comes to the hurricane aftermath. And the media in overdrive. I mean, defending the government. There are people still stranded out there. There are people still stranded. People still missing. And it is all about defending FEMA, defending FEMA, defending FEMA. That is their number one priority.
We posted a video of Biden when he had just got back from, touring the storm damage. And he said, "What storm?" Because he was very confused. A reporter was asking him about, just what he thought about it. Is there a message? And of course, we had all kinds of comments. And somebody had commented, "Well, he didn't say what storm. There is another one coming in." And it's just that denial.
Yeah, it is a total denial. And the instinct to not have priority number one be victims. The instinct to not just like that be the default. What is going on with that? It's trying to figure out how can we defend FEMA? How can we defend the people in charge? And I know that I continually push this point, but that we are truly witnessing this real clear divide, the elites versus the rest of us. And it is seeing, we were watching it play out in the election. This is not Republican versus Democrat in the presidential context. That is not what's going on. Now, of course, that's how it's listed. That's how it's labeled. And yes, one candidate is running as a Democrat and one is running as a Republican. But this is not Republican values versus Democrat values. This is the establishment elite values versus the rest of us. And you saw it particularly yesterday in the media. Full display. It's all about defending the government, not the people, not the volunteers, not those who are trying desperately to get aid, not the volunteers who were using drones to drop insulin to stranded people who have diabetes, life-saving insulin that were told to stop doing it by Pete Buttigieg, ordered by the government to quit doing it. Quit sending life-saving needed, whether it's insulin or other sorts of medications, food, water. This is what people were using these drones for. And Pete Buttigieg tells him, stop, you're getting in the way of us getting what we need to get done, which, of course, was nothing. Putting out videos telling those people There was a video put out. It was somebody at FEMA in a nice cozy office, and making sure that people knew. Now you can go online and submit an application if you need assistance. We're here to help. Meanwhile, there are people actually in the moment dropping life-saving medications to people that cannot get out of where they are. And some of it we think, well, the waters, they've receded. I mean, people aren't standing on roofs any longer, but many people are stranded because roads have been washed away. The only way to get to these people, where civilians were flying helicopters, they've been told in many instances to stop doing that. You have people utilizing drones in order to drop life-saving, whether it's medications or clean water, and the government telling them stop doing that because we're on top of it. We're putting out videos telling those people that they can get online and submit an application, fill out all the proper paperwork, and then we'll make sure to go through it. And then, when it comes your time, we'll make sure that you're taken care of. This is like showing up at a house fire with people trapped inside, standing outside with a megaphone and telling the people inside trapped to log on and submit an application to the local fire department with what their needs are, and then as soon as we can get to you, we'll make sure that they're met, and then blocking citizens from trying to run in and rescue those individuals trapped in the fire. That's what's happening. And then the media doing everything they can. Well, we ask FEMA. This is their fact-checking. FEMA is largely the problem. We've got some of the audio. I mean, it's just infuriating. I think it was Dana Bash. Well, this is disinformation. We know because we ask FEMA. Oh, you ask FEMA. Okay. Well, sure. I'm sure they're going to be straightforward with you. Over the weekend, the media and the Democrats have developed a new approach, and that is if you criticize the failure of response, you are the problem. You are creating a dangerous environment for the victims. I mean, this is Soviet-style threat. Telling the citizens, don't you dare criticize our failures. Because if you do, you're deemed a danger. This presidential election is not Republican values versus Democrat values. Now, some are going to argue that, well, that is the clear difference. But it really isn't, because there are plenty of Republicans that are part of the establishment. I mean, we've heard that from Congressman Eric Burlison. He'll join us today. The swamp, if you will, the elite, if you will, it is a combination of Republicans and Democrats. And you don't really have any Democrats that are outside of that realm. You have former Democrats, the Tulsi Gabbards and the RFK Juniors, and some of those individuals that have recognized, and a lot of state elected Democrats that have left the party. They don't get quite the attention that some of the national Democrats do, that leave the party because they see what's going on. But ultimately, in reality, this is an us versus them. And while that may seem adversarial, we've got to understand, and I know many of you do, that's how they view us. We are a problem that has to be handled at all times. We are a problem. We are the roadblock to them in charge doing what they need to do for us. And anyone who criticizes, questions, or tries to step in order to get the things done that need to get done are dangerous. And that's the verbiage that they're using now. It is dangerous to question FEMA, because if you question FEMA, you're spreading disinformation. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair, the Ozarks Home Improvements. It's going to feel a lot like fall this week. Today, we're going to see sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight, clear with a low around 47. On Tuesday, sunny with a high near 75. And on Wednesday, we'll warm back up with temperatures in the lower 80s.
A text message on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line from Hank in Florida. One report was that $750 is going to be direct deposited to bank accounts. It may take up to 10 days. How do they get to a bank? Well, now that's nitpicking, and you are a danger. How dare you ask these questions? And by the way, many, over the weekend in particular, Tom Cotton on NBC is one of them, and some have noted just the disconnect from what is needed with these announcements of, well, we're going to make sure that everyone has $750. And when the people who are wanting meaningful things to get done point this out, they're accused of spreading disinformation. I'll play the audio for you coming up a little bit later in the program, in which Dana Bash on CNN is like, well, people are spreading disinformation that the administration's out there saying that $750 is what these people are. They are the ones who. Where do you think this number came from? There was some sort of secret conspiracy cabal of people that got together and said, let's create an AI of Kamala talking about $750.
We just used Plinko.
Yeah, just
we had different numbers down there,
Yep.
you know. Okay, you
Yep.
landed on 750.
Yep,
That's what we're going with.
That's what it landed on. It's pretty close to what it landed on when we used it for the fires in Hawaii as well. I'm telling you, if your instinct, this is a gut check for a lot of people. When there are people still stranded in this disaster, if your instinct when you hear reports of this is to defend the government, you've got a real problem. You have a real problem. And this, by the way, is how it is that centralized government societies become so cold and heartless and have people that suffer to such a large degree because they cultivate a culture in which default is, what does the government say? Default is defend the people in government because that's whose side I'm on. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. Donald Trump returning to Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was shot, along with a number of other people. This is, being a Trump supporter in 2024. We've heard it was very commonplace back in the last several years. Anytime somebody who was a person of color would try to kill a police officer and would lose their life in the process, that was painted as being black in America in 2022. Now, being a Trump supporter in 2024 means that, of course, there's a very good chance you'll be assaulted or murdered. And there were a number of people, in addition to Trump, that were shot on that day in July, one of which lost his life. Trump did what, and let me tell you, this is, I know there's a different appeal to people in different ways. Of course, if you hate Trump, you hate Trump, and that's your overriding emotion. But I like whenever somebody gets knocked down and they just get right back up and they're defiant, and to go back to that place. When there was all this discussion after 9/11, 2001 about what to put there, should there be nothing there? Should there be a monument there? What should the monument look like? From the very beginning, my vote was for put the towers back up. Put it exactly the way that it was. So that there is no photo of the skyline, what it looked like before versus after. It was, just you're going to knock them down? Guess what? We'll put them right back up. I mean, to me, that was the most, symbolic way of saying this is who we are and you will not take us down. I mean, nobody else really seemed to see it that way necessarily, but that's just how I am. So for Trump to say, no, I'm going to go back there, and he was insistent, apparently, that his podium be in the exact same place. I thought the way that he opened up his speech was pretty incredible, and this was Saturday, right? I'm trying to remember. My days, I was at Farm Fest all weekend, so my days are just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday blended together.
Yes.
I think this would have been Saturday.
Lee, thank you very much. Really, thank you. A very big thank you to Pennsylvania. We love Pennsylvania. And as I was saying,
I don't know that there is a more brilliant way of opening up. As I was saying, just to pick up where he left off. And that's what I guess, and I think that's just his instinct. That is the sort, now it's got a humor element to it as well, obviously. But that just, you're not going to stop me. And I'm not even going to pause. I'm just going to pick up where I left off. You could try to murder me. You can try to murder the movement. You can try to stop. You think about, I know this has been gone over, but what this guy has been put through by the left in this country. The constant attempts to kill him, the constant attempts to put him in prison, the constant attempts to, falsely portray him with, coming up with fake dossiers and using them to spy on his campaign, to spy on him, falsifying records. I mean, the case in Florida indefinitely put on hold because the Biden administration had to acknowledge that they falsified evidence and that they tampered with evidence. Which, by the way, and we'll get to this later, that judge down there that the media portrays as some sort of lapdog of Trump, there was an indictment on someone who was threatening to murder her, assassinate her. I wonder why that was. I just can't imagine. And this guy, he just keeps going. And for what? It's not like he's Biden or Harris or virtually every other career politician in which that's where they make their money. They go in with a net worth of 6 figures and come out 7 or 8. Just kept by the taxpayers the rest of their lives. They're lobbyists, whatever it may be, where it is their golden ticket. I mean, financially, this guy has sacrificed more than most people could ever even conceive. And for what? Well, for us, for the country. What a foreign thought and idea that is to the elite. I mean, no wonder they think this guy is evil, because for what other reason would he want to be president of the United States? I mean, it's incomprehensible to them because their minds don't work that way. They don't get into this because they want to sacrifice themselves for the good of others or for the country. If that were the case, they wouldn't all come out multimillionaires. So they can't comprehend that's why Trump's doing this. Because Trump is just one of these guys that likes to fix things. He sees a problem. He wants to fix it. He wants to make it better. You could call it ego if you want, whatever. In the modern era, there's no one who has sacrificed as much personally as Donald Trump has, in order to be president or any elected official, really. And that's beyond their comprehension. So you can almost see when you are dealing with people that are emotionally deranged and paranoid, why it is that they default to, well, Trump must be this evil, crazy dictator, because why else would he do this? There's got to be something in it for him. Clearly it's not money, because he's losing that. It just must be power. Which makes sense that would be their default, because that's why they're in it. And that's what we tend to do when we try to figure out other people's behavior. It's based off our own approach in things. He gets up there. As I was saying, I don't know that there has ever been a better opening line for any sort of speech, particularly because of ultimately the message that it conveyed. And while it's got the humor to it, and that's what grabs the attention, that's why you like to hear it. But I think the real meat of that, the real marrow of that.
Campaign shirt.
Yeah, as I was saying, because it conveys this steadfastness, this, you're not going to push me off of this course. You're just not going to do it. I mean, you can, but I'm getting right back up, and you're not going to alter the course. This is a movement. This is what's right, and no matter what you do, we're just going to keep going. So as I was saying, it's just absolutely fantastic. We have more audio, including from the nurse, or one of the nurses who was there in the hospital when Trump and the other victims of the shooter arrived, Elon Musk as well, all in moments. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. despite the warmer than most people would have liked weather over the weekend, we are into the fall festival season, and there are a lot of them going on in the area, but many times maybe you're not familiar with them. It'll be in, a little town that perhaps you're familiar with, you've heard of, but you're not on their Chamber of Commerce newsletter, so you don't know about whatever festival they may have. We have at KSGF.com a listing of fall festivals in the Ozarks, and that is sponsored by Dogwood Canyon. So you can go to KSGF.com. As the weekend approaches, you're like, I wonder where we should go, what we should do. That's a great resource for you at KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. It's going to feel a lot like fall this week. Today, we're going to see sunny skies with a high near 74.
About time.
I know, finally. Tonight, clear with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 75. But then on Wednesday, it is going to warm back up with temps in the lower 80s.
Which I will be gone Thursday, Friday, and
That's
Monday.
right.
So David Bishop's in one day, right?
Bishop Davidson.
Or Bishop Davidson.
Yes. He will be in.
I don't know who this person is.
You're like, who?
My mind, I'm telling you, it's not like I had the hardest work in the world, but I
No,
was
but
out
you
in the
did.
sun a lot this weekend at Farm
Yeah,
Fest.
you didn't have that reset day, but
I did
no,
not have
Bishop
the reset day.
Davidson.
Well, and people, they were like at work here, like, are you not taking? Because some of the other folks,
Yeah.
they took off today. I was like, no, because I'm gonna be off Thursday, Friday anyhow, and then Monday of next week. So, no big deal. But yeah, Bishop. What did I say? David Bishop said. Bishop Davidson.
He will be in
Great.
on Thursday. Kyle Wyatt will be in on Friday, and then on Monday, Darren Chappell.
I met someone that went to high school there in Chapel. Graduated.
Really?
Yeah, it was a friend of my. Actually, I always hesitate to say the names of my friends on air because afraid that they may be like, oh, I wish you hadn't said we're friends, even though I know they wouldn't mind. But anyway, they were having a retirement party because they're both retiring. And his brother, whom I had met before, I was chatting with him, and he mentioned, he goes, oh, I went to school with Darren Chappell. And I said, oh, so well, he's going to actually be filling in for me.
There
So,
you go.
yeah,
Yep.
which, incidentally, so Farm Fest, this was the first year we were out there. I know many of you heard us. Brad Pistole, host of Safe Money Radio, sponsoring us out there, and he joined us on Saturday. We did a noon to 1 live. We also did the show out there Friday live, and then we went around and throughout the day chatted with some of our partners and some of the folks. I think, some advertise here and there. Some of it's more seasonal. Some of it's, more consistent. But just everyone was so incredibly awesome. Not that I expected otherwise, but and just those of you who came up and talked to me, I could not go from one place to another without being stopped, which was fantastic.
Just solidified. We need to be out there again.
Yes, and we will be. The only thing about it is there were like a few times I was really trying to get the audio, because it's kind of a one-man show going there, so I have to get it set up and send it through space, and then it comes back here and all that sort of stuff. And I would have to get it done in time while I'm trying at the same time have a conversation with someone. And I was just like, man, I hope they don't think I'm being rude by half listening to them. So if you were somebody I was talking to while I had that laptop open, please don't think I was on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or something. It was, just me trying to get that taken care of. But just so many. It was just so fantastic. A lot of Trump shirts, of course. I had one guy come up, and he was telling me about one show in particular that's not his favorite. He didn't care for it, and he was explaining why. And before he started to, he's like, you mind listening to me on this? And I was like, no, not at all. And I think that surprised him. And then afterwards, he's like, well, thanks for listening to me complain about that show. And which I always like feedback. And here's the thing. I think sometimes, because he goes, now you're the program director, right? You run that station. So that's why he was telling me this stuff. And it's always helpful to know what you like and what you don't like. And it doesn't, I think sometimes people are worried that if they say, well, I don't like this show, that I'm going to be offended because I put the show on the air or something. No, that is not at all how I perceive it. That's good feedback, because not everyone's going to like all of the shows. For every person who doesn't like this one host, there's someone else who loves that host. And it's like menu. It's a menu, and food items on a menu. You have certain food items that some people are like, ugh, I don't like that at all, and others it's their favorite. Now, if over time you find that the vast majority of people aren't ordering that item, then you realize, maybe it's not a good fit, and so you replace it. So getting that sort of feedback is always helpful, who you like and who you don't like. So don't ever feel like, well, I don't want to be rude, because it's not being rude at all. The station's here for you. I mean, the whole point is to serve you. And without getting that sort of feedback, sometimes it can make it a little more difficult. So I always appreciate getting that sort of feedback and when you come up and chat. But it was a really, really great time. And thank you for being in here Saturday at noon.
Yeah, you're welcome.
To run things.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Elon Musk on Saturday, one of the speakers. Now, we played the audio earlier. Trump opening up his speech in front of a massive crowd. I mean, it was just a sea of people in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the exact moment that those shots rang out was, Trump at that point, he asked for a moment of silence, and then there was, I guess, an opera singer. I'm not familiar with opera singers. Suspect many of you are not as well, sang Ave Maria in order to commemorate the firefighter who lost his life. And I mean, it was just, the whole thing was incredible. So Trump opened up with, though, before that, as I was saying, which I thought was just a brilliant way to open things up. Elon Musk, one of the individuals that was there, who spoke as well.
The true test of someone's character is how they behave under fire. And we had one president who couldn't climb a flight of stairs, and another who was fist pumping after getting shot. fight, fight, fight. Blood coming down the face. Now, America is the home of the brave. And there's no truer test than courage under fire.
One of the individuals that spoke also was a nurse who was in the emergency room there at the hospital, in which all of the shooting victims were brought in. Of course, that included Donald Trump. Actually, sorry, wrong audio. Here is that nurse.
Saturday, July 13th. I was working the evening President Trump was shot. That evening, I witnessed a man with a deeply rooted bond with his family. I heard him speak with his wife, his children, and his grandchildren. He let them know that he was safe and that he was being taken care of. I heard his daughter say, "Only by the grace of God, you are here." The man that we all see on TV with the strong personality who sometimes doesn't mince for words, or who is seen as a wealthy, powerful businessman, was not the man that I stood beside that evening. What I saw was a man that, in the aftermath of one of the most terrifying experiences of his life, showed resiliency. He showed strength and courage. He showed that his family was at the forefront. He was a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He was compassionate and grateful. He was kind and humble. Several times I stood and stared at him with tears rolling down my cheeks. He was someone's dad. He's a human just like you and me. I held the hand of that man who sends out the mean tweets, and I thanked him for loving our country and fighting for our freedoms. He assured me that he is doing everything he can to save our country, and I believe this to be true now more than ever.
There were others who spoke, including the doctor who worked on some of the other victims. He at one point joked that he's like, "Now I've got a disclaimer. I used to be a Democrat." Of course, the crowd kind of, they all laugh. And everybody's just so good-natured at these Trump rallies. You just look at the difference of this feeling. You see these rallies, you hear these average people. Again, I just cannot hammer away enough at this is not Republican, Democrat. This is the elites versus normal people who just want to live their lives, care for their loved ones, help those who are in need. And you've got this array of individuals, former Democrats, probably some that have been lifelong Republicans as well, just getting up and sharing their stories. And it's love. It's this outpouring of love, and it's in this theme of making life better for people who are doing well, people who aren't doing well, everyone coming together. And then you listen to the Kamala Harris campaign and the darkness of evil MAGA and end of democracy as we know it, and they're going to take away your right to kill your own children. It's just this complete difference in feeling. This bright, positive, love-based caring, and then one of fear. Life as you know it is going to come to it. One that compels followers to try and murder the political opposition. It is such a drastic difference. I think another illustration of the difference, this is, I believe, towards the end of the Trump rally on Saturday.
I see stars, I hear the thunder, thy path throughout the vast display. Listen to my song, say to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art. Listen to my song, my Savior God for the
So that was at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania, and then on the flip side, at a Kamala Harris event in Georgia.
What we talking about up here, y'all? If you and if you yeah, yeah.
So that was the Kamala Harris rally, and that was Megan the Stallion, who was singing about or there to promote the right for mothers to kill their own children, and a song that most of the lyrics she could not even sing because they were so brazenly pornographic in nature that they made the wise decision to have an edited version. I mean, this is just the plain as day difference in the overall culture. These aren't one-offs, because, yeah, Trump goes to New York and he's got a rally with some rappers. So it's not about that, but it's just the common theme on any given day. And it is so clear how effective the media and the Democrats have been with some people at spreading disinformation, that they've convinced a lot of people that Trump is dark and evil. Yet, there were a few of these stories and people that would go viral back in 2016 and 2020 that were left-wingers that decided to venture to a Trump rally to see what it was like because they were intellectually curious. And every time the story was the same. They were shocked at how uplifting it was, how kind people were. They were shocked whenever they would admit, hey, I'm a Democrat, I just came, and how welcoming people were. I remember one of the first ones, it was a gal that was on Glenn Beck's show, and I think this was 2016, but I could be wrong. And she was in a quilting. It was like a quilting online group or something. It had nothing what to do with politics or anything to do with politics whatsoever. And she talked about how the left everything was about Trump, and anti-Trump. And she, if I remember correctly, was sort of anti-Trump at the time, but decided to venture out and find out is what everyone's saying true, and found the opposite. I mean, this is consistent. And to have this option in front of us, one, that even people who don't like Trump, maybe even hate him, but take the opportunity to say, I want to see for myself. Instead of just believing what I'm told, I want to see for myself. And consistently, those people are shocked at how uplifting it is, how friendly and kind, and how these people they showed love to me. Versus the dark, macabre nature of a campaign whose entire premise is about demonizing Americans that don't support them, calling them dangers to democracy, threats to our very existence, semi-fascist, that out of the words of the President of the United States. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. At the end, this is Pyramid Roofing Company Talk, a text line. At the end of Trump rallies, Nessun Dorma is played. It is an opera that was the ending soundtrack on Tom Clancy's movie, The Sum of All Fears. Very symbolic message to the deep state. If you haven't seen the movie, please watch it. That is one of my favorites, though I'm not, like I said, an opera guy, but for whatever reason, that I really, really like that. Michael Bolton, interestingly enough, does an incredible version of that. I say interestingly enough. Maybe it's not interesting at all. So check this out. Donald Trump goes back to Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania, all this obviously in Pennsylvania, important state. A lot of attention in that state paid to the fact that Donald Trump is returned there. Massive crowd, very moving. Doctors and nurses that were in the hospital that day. Elon Musk, J.D. Vance was there as well. So what generally happens after an event like that? Perhaps people who, particularly in Pennsylvania, maybe they haven't been real engaged. They haven't decided for whom they're going to vote. They don't really like, well, Trump's mean. Kamala Harris is more of the same. So if there is a very successful event like Saturday, you might have people decide, you know what, I think I do like Trump. With that in mind, this story, conservatives blasted Pennsylvania's Department of State this month for scheduling a system maintenance update to its voter registration website the same day Trump returned to Butler, where he survived an assassination attempt in July. The operation would take the site offline for several hours during the same time frame the Trump campaign expected to register votes. The department, however, would move the window of time for maintenance to later in the night amid outcry. GOP activist Scott Pressler posted to Instagram on Thursday, the PA State Department voter registration website will be unavailable on Saturday, October 5th, the day that Trump will be triumphantly returning to the site of the assassination attempt in Butler County, PA. With all eyes on PA, the site will be down. Coincidence? Fox News Digital reviewed archive data from the Pennsylvania voter registration website, found that it issued a disclaimer to voters that the website would be unavailable on October 5th, beginning at 6 p.m. But, of course, there was enough outcry that apparently they moved it off a bit. But, hell, I'm sure it could be just another one of those coincidences. But how many times can there be some sort of error, some sort of miscommunication, or some sort of coincidence in which Trump or Trump supporters or Republicans are the ones who get the short end of the stick? It is amazing what consistency. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. I was chatting with someone at Farm Fest over the weekend, and how I got into the conversation of where we live, I don't recall, but he had mentioned, well, we lived in Battlefield there for a while, and then we moved to this place. And I said, what I almost always say when somebody mentions that they live in Battlefield, ooh, you've got Godfather's Pizza. I wish we had one in Republic, but it's a short drive away. Battlefield, Nixa, Ozark, Springfield. If you have the KSGF app, on Fridays you get a notification as to a special that's only announced on the app. They rotate. Sometimes it's free delivery, which they deliver all the time to some of the areas. You can find out if they cover you by a phone call. Then sometimes it's, a free this, buy one this, and get that free and so forth. But if you download that app, you'll get those notifications on Friday. And, of course, they're just a fantastic place to get pizza. And those are the store locations that do the delivery. I know the Springfield location does a buffet at lunchtime. They have a salad bar as well. You can, of course, get all their information for Godfather's Pizza at ksgf.com. We've got news in 60 seconds.
Anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel.
The President and First Lady will participate in a memorial candle lighting ceremony in the Blue Room of the White House. It will mark 1 year since the Hamas-led terrorist attack in Israel. Vice President Harris and her husband will commemorate the anniversary by planting a memorial tree at their Naval Observatory residence.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston, our military affairs analyst, retired Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, notes this was far from the first assault on the Jewish state.
In the past, we've seen similar, to a lesser degree, attacks from a variety of groups that are representing Iran's interests against the Israelis, but they never lasted this long.
The Gaza war continues to rage. Israel and Hamas exchanging fire, including a volley of rockets fired by Hamas at Tel Aviv earlier today. Israel also continues going after Hezbollah in Lebanon. 51 Florida counties under a state of emergency as Hurricane Milton approaches. Currently a Category 3 storm. It could be a Cat 4 by the time it makes landfall, possibly in the Tampa Bay area at midweek.
We are going to have a major storm impact the state. It's too soon to tell exactly where. It's too soon to tell exactly how powerful, although we expect it to be powerful.
Governor Ron DeSantis heard on WSFU-TV. Police in Santa Monica, California say it was an unprovoked attack. An officer has fatally shot a man who wounded him with a knife. Happened outside police headquarters. The injured officer was briefly hospitalized. On Wall Street this morning, the Dow futures down 175 points. NASDAQ futures off 121. More on these stories at townhall.com.
For anyone with everyday aches and pains, I've got a question. What are you missing out on? Probably a lot. So let me tell you about Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a drug-free daily supplement that helps your body fight pain naturally. It doesn't just mask pain, it helps reduce or even eliminate it. In about 3 weeks, you'll discover what it's like to feel better. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF and save on your first order. That's 1-800-4 relief.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can easily find coverage options that fit your budget. If only it was that easy to name your baby.
How about Jaden?
Nope.
Okay. Michael?
Went to middle school with a glue-eating Michael.
Sebastian?
Dated one in college.
How about Damien?
Vampire name.
All right. Greg?
Not feeling it.
Okay. No worries. No worries. Jeffrey?
Oh, love that one.
Wait, really?
No.
Find coverage options that fit your budget with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. Also.
The Dutch government believes a cyber attack that accessed work-related contact details of all Dutch police officers was almost certainly carried out by hackers.
If you've yet to schedule a winterization for your RV, even if you aren't ready to retire it for the season for good reason, I mean, it's still been relatively warm, I mean, especially over the last several days. So there's plenty of camping season left, but it doesn't hurt to make the appointment now. You can do it with Wilder RV. They can take care of all that for you. And, hey, who knows, maybe it's time to upgrade. You can take advantage of some of the end-of-the-year pricing that they have for their RVs. Do a little trading up or maybe trade down. What you got? You're like, you know what? The kids are out. It's just me and the wife and the dog now. We don't really need as much room as we did once upon a time. And So you can get yourself into something that's more appropriate for what it is that you are looking for. They can work with you on all of that. Wilder RV, Clinton, Missouri, just north of Springfield on 13, a bit over an hour. Well worth the drive. You can find them also at wilderrv.com and ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. It has been a year since the terror attack on Israel, the single most devastating and unfortunately effective attack against the Jewish people since Hitler. And it has been one in which ever since most of the world, and sadly led by the United States, telling the people of Israel, just calm down. I get really tired of this administration opening up every statement regarding Israel with, now, we've always said they have the right to defend themselves, and then essentially launching into why it is that they don't have the right to defend themselves. The trick they play here, and it's so nefarious, is to say that they support Israel's rights to defend itself, but then when it comes down to it, they craft these standards that make it impossible for Israel to defend itself. And they craft standards that are without real definition. So you can't ever even comply with the standards if you wanted to. One of the big ones, of course, is, well, they've got to figure out how it is to minimize civilian casualties. That's what they have to do. They can protect themselves, but they have to minimize civilian casualties. Well, what does that mean, minimize? You see, they don't put a number on it. Not that a number would be a reasonable thing to do anyhow, but in addition to that being unreasonable, not giving any sort of number, so guess what that means? They're always wrong. Israel's always wrong. They're always killing too many civilians. Well, how many is 2 million? Well, you know. It doesn't matter that they go to lengths that no country has ever gone to, including the United States, in order to protect civilians, dropping leaflets ahead of attacks, sending text messages to civilians, letting them know what is coming. In other words, giving even the enemy a heads up so that civilians and their civilian deaths can be minimized. Things that we don't do as a country. Yet Kamala Harris still runs around, well, they're not doing enough to minimize civilian deaths. It's an evil trap because it allows them to put the screws to Israel. It allows them to help Hamas while parading themselves around as if, no, because we said they have the right to defend themselves. Wait, let me be clear on this. Well, isn't that convenient? We've also, because of September 7th or October 7th, and I do not believe this should be overlooked. We all observed, bubbling to the surface, where the real anti-Semitism in this country lies, and that is the Democrat Party. Up to and including the fact that the reason Kamala Harris is not campaigning around this country with Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro is because he's a Jew. And everyone knows this. No one's denied this. Democrats openly talked about the problems with her picking a Jew to be on the ticket. This is how seeped in anti-Semitism the Democrat Party is. And for years, they had been able to falsely paint Donald Trump as being anti-Semitic. All the neo-Nazis are Trump supporters. Oh, really? All of those people on campuses calling for The elimination of Israel, those are Trump supporters. All those you see on the college campuses, along with the Hamas flag, they're all wearing MAGA hats. Left-wing Democrats that have run these universities, that have long said free speech isn't hate speech, calling for the death of all Jews isn't hate speech, they say. That's free speech. I suppose that any time a light is shown on the darkness and we see what we did not once see before, we should be grateful for that. It's unfortunate that it took September 11th for it to come to the surface. But if there is a benefit, it is that additional knowledge. Now, many of us knew it, but so many Americans did not. So many Americans, because of the disinformation from the media, believed that anti-Semitism was a Donald Trump thing. You know, the tiki torches. The lie that Trump said neo-Nazis were very fine people. That lie coming out of the mouth of a man who said that those protesters calling for the elimination of Jews have a point. Just weeks ago. They've got a point. Of course, if they're forced to answer for that, well, I wasn't talking about that part of what they said. Well, what part? Because that's pretty much the premise of their argument. That's the starting point for them, the elimination of Jews. Tim Walz was asked about this. I think Martha McCallum interviewed him over the weekend. Well, when we're saying that, when we're saying that they have a point and they're fighting a good fight, I mean, we're not talking about that part of their fight. That is their fight. You can't really compartmentalize that stuff. The theme of their parade is kill the Jews. And it doesn't take great analysis to figure that out because they're pretty clear about it. Up to and including the fact that when they have the chance, they do it themselves. And I know there are a lot of people that listening right now, well, we don't really know how we're going to vote, or oh, I just really hate Donald Trump. You hate him that much? You hate him that much? That you would support a movement? Because that's what you're doing when you vote for these people. And trying to claim, as Tim Walz did on Sunday, and we've heard Kamala and Democrats, well, we're not talking about their calls to kill the Jews. It's their other stuff. That's no different than saying, what about all the good things Hitler did? I mean, sure, he did some bad stuff. I mean, we're not saying Hitler was good, because of the Jews stuff, but he did some other good things. Do we do that? No. So why is it appropriate for a political party in this country to say, well, we don't support the part about exterminating the Jews. It's just, what about all the other good things that they support? Same argument. Weather in a moment. Traffic as well. Latest news now.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Well, it's going to feel a lot like fall over the next couple of days at least. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight clear with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 75. And on Wednesday it will warm back up with temperatures in the lower 80s.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, for all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs. She will take care of you. And this is not someone who is just there to find out what you're looking for, find some stuff for you, send it to you by way of text. Be like, well, which of these are you interested in? Okay, we'll set up appointments. I'll show them to you. That is just a tip of iceberg. I mean, she does so much more. If you're looking to sell your home, there's so much that, think of it as lawyers, I guess, to some degree. And if you are taking someone to civil court, you're probably worried, how's my lawyer compared to theirs? I mean, you get it. There's the law. But most people are realistic that there are different levels of dedication and talent. And if the other person has the better attorney, regardless of the law, if they know the law better, then there's a very good chance they're going to come out ahead. And you recognize that. Realtors are the same way. And guess what? If you're buying a home, the seller has a realtor. If you're selling your home, the buyer's going to have a realtor. So you want to make sure you have the absolute best, and that's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. October 7th, it's been 1 year, and what an absolute shame it is that I wonder if it's a majority of Americans, a majority. I think it's reasonable to believe there could be a majority of Americans that do not know we have Americans that are being held hostage by the terrorists to this day. Because this administration pays no attention. During the vice presidential debate last week, when there was a question about Israel, and Tim Walz opened up with the obligatory, now, we've always said they have a right to defend themselves. And in his answer, he referenced the fact that, Israel, attempting to get their hostages back. No mention of the American hostages. This is a man who's running for the vice presidency of the United States, recognizes that there are hostages, but does not mention the American hostages, which means one of two things. One of the three things. Either he doesn't know, or he does know, but he doesn't want to bring it up. He doesn't want Americans to know, because the left in this administration, they want people to forget about it. Like they want us to forget about those that we left in Afghanistan, including Americans. Or he does know, but it is so irrelevant that it did not cross his mind while talking about hostages in Israel. I mean, those are the three options. I can't think of a fourth. I don't think that there is an option that is appropriate for somebody who is wanting to be vice president of the United States to, on the stage, when more people are watching and listening to him than ever have, to talk about hostages being held in Israel and not mention that there are Americans there? We've learned a lot about ourselves post-October 7th. In addition to, as I mentioned during the last segment, where the true anti-Semitism lies in this country, and that is with the left, it was also an opportunity for us to understand where that came from. How did that occur? And those who were intellectually curious enough would learn the answer, and that is the DEI, specifically CRT specifically, and that style of divisive philosophy and rhetoric. White people are privileged. People of color are victims. And if ever there is any sort of conflict between white people and people of color, by default, the white people are privileged, so they are the oppressor. That is the verbiage. That's not my verbiage. That's their verbiage. It wasn't several years ago that we shared with you, both on social media and over the airwaves, the manuals, if you will, the workbooks that were part of the training for staff within the Springfield public school systems that listed white people as oppressors. When you create a culture in which young people are raised to believe that if people are white and there is a conflict with people who are not white, that the people of white are the oppressors, you cannot then be shocked when they act on that. When there is a conflict between two people, the Jewish people who are largely viewed as being white, and then the people of Gaza who are, and Hamas, who are viewed as being people of color, that these young people on these university campuses responded to what they were taught. It is remarkable to hear those who have tried to disconnect those two. Well, this doesn't have anything to do with DEI and CRT. Like, what are you talking about? That's the premise for their argument. White people, the Jews are the oppressors. That is the, it isn't only not hidden in the teachings, that is the virtuous theme of it. To the point, if you don't agree with it, you're part of the problem. And if you're white and you don't recognize that you are by default the oppressor, then it proves the point that you are the oppressor. It was not And these discussions were occurring at the time that these left-wing activists all over college campuses were attacking Jews, calling for the extermination of Jews, and these discussions like, well, where did this come from? What do you mean, where did it come from? This is what they've been taught. What did you want their reaction to be? What is the goal? If you teach entire generations of people that there are evil oppressors and this is what they look like, and anytime there's a conflict, they are the evil oppressors, what was your desired outcome when there was a conflict like October 7th or an attack like October 7th? What was your... What do you want them to do? What do you expect their position to be? Aside from the ability post-October 7th for us to observe the truth in many of this, in much of this, let's not forget the brass tacks, getting right down to it fact that Donald Trump economically crippled Iran deliberately because he recognized they were bad people. One of his foreign policy goals was to foster stability in the Middle East. You know, it wasn't just the Abraham Accords. He recognized that there also needed to be stability. And how do you get stability? Well, let's see here. You got the number one exporter of terrorism who is funding all of these terror organizations. We got to cripple them, cut off the flow of money. Walk and chew gum at the same time while working on peace deals between Israel and other Middle Eastern countries. At the same time, it's necessary to destabilize the destabilizer. And that is try and make Iran less relevant, thereby making terrorists less relevant. It was a very deliberate move. It wasn't just for funsies. And it was effective. He would also put organizations like the Houthis on terror, give them terrorist recognition, acknowledge them as being terrorists, so that they would find it even more difficult to receive money. Biden-Harris came in, opened up the money spigots to both Iran and took the Houthis off the terror designation list. Just removed them from it. And got the money flowing back to Iran, which allowed them to begin, once again, flowing money to terrorist organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. And this is where we are. They would not have been able to carry out those attacks without that financial support. No one denies that. Ideologically, the left in this country has been supportive and fostering of anti-Semitism. And financially, this administration did more than any nation has done in order to help those who want to eliminate the Jews by getting that funding flowing again. It is really unfortunate and sad that that financial decision helped do more and made possible to carry out the single largest slaughtering of the Jewish people since Hitler. That's what our country did. Deliberately. Now, people can argue that the result wasn't deliberate, but the money flowing was. And there's this saying that those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it, and history repeats itself. I, of course, am a firm believer history does not repeat itself. People repeat history. And they repeat it whenever they either don't take the time to recognize it or they don't care. They're fine with repeating history. But if over the past year one wants to or has paid attention, there's been a lot that we've learned about ourselves under this administration, specifically under DEI, under CRT, about the horrors of hate and anti-Semitism. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Got a word salad. Kamala Harris was doing an interview, Bill Whitaker, 60 Minutes. No, wait, this wasn't. I don't know who Bill Whitaker's with, but he asked about why isn't Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu listening to her. Her word salad answer coming up. But what a laughable question in the first place. Like, oh, let us list the reasons.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 75. Tonight clear with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 76. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. The Pyramid Roofing Company, so as you just heard, we're going to be seeing some fall weather slowly creep into the Ozarks soon. And right now is the best time to do any type of home repairs, and that includes your roof. Now, if you've been putting off roof repairs, or maybe you just want to get an idea of the health of your roof, I highly recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, fall is the best time to put on a roof. It's cooling down, and so contractors are slowing down as well. And you can get a better deal during fall installation and quicker turnaround as well. So if you are wanting to schedule that roof repair or maybe that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
All right, Bill Whitaker is with 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, but then we went to a break.
Why was I thinking she just did a 60 Minutes interview? Maybe that was something else. I thought she had done one recently. Anyhow, she was asked by Bill Whitaker why Benjamin Netanyahu isn't listening to her. I like that question itself is absurd. I suppose it's a good question to ask, given that she is wanting to be president of the United States. It's like, I mean, the real question is why would he? I mean, honestly, the United States has proven to no longer be an ally of Israel, at least hopefully just temporarily. I mean, part of the reason that some of the most recent military moves have been a, quote, surprise to the administration is because the Netanyahu administration does not trust the Biden-Harris team to not leak the information. They do not trust us. We're not talking about trade negotiations or some sort of weapons acquisition that involves a third ally, and they're afraid that there may be some behind-the-scenes conversations between France and the United States. We're talking about terrorists who want to eliminate Jews from the earth. And the Israelis have recognized that they can no longer trust the United States not to tip them off. I mean, it's. Why do you think Netanyahu doesn't listen to you? Aside from all of that, why would he? What her? It's just her vast experience. See. Anyhow, here's her answer. So it's a good thing she was there to really clarify an answer.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
I mean, what? Why? She should just say pass. Just say pass. Or, you know what? I don't know how to answer that. Can we just skip, go to the next one? I don't even know no one knows what she said. No one ever knows what she says when it comes to this stuff.
Matter if she did that anyways, they just cut it out of the interview and be like, okay.
All right, we interviewed her for 8 hours, and we still do not have enough for the 12-minute segment. I mean, listen to her answer again.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
See, what I think would be a neat little game to play is to take average voters, when Kamala Harris is asked a question, and then she gives an answer, then to say, all right, in your own words, please write down what it is that she said. In your own words. What do you think would occur? I mean, would that not be a fantastic experiment to do? Have that on television, like we hear, whether it's CBS 60 Minutes or whatever the outfit is, wanted to just, see how well Kamala Harris is at having her communications received. How when you have the people, the audience, because this is one of the responsibilities of someone who is speaking. You speak in a manner in which your audience is going to understand. That's the whole point of talking. This is why we talk. This is why words are supposed to matter. Because the goal is you have something going on in your head. That person has something going on in their head. You want them to know what's going on in your head and vice versa. So we have words that are formed to represent things and actions. And this is why we speak to one another. So when you're asked a question, the whole point of giving an answer is so that the audience, both the person who asked the question, and of course he's asking the question on behalf of the viewers, should walk away with the ability to repeat to someone else what is going on in your mind. If you took 100 random people and had them listen to the average answer that Kamala Harris gives about something that is supposed to be of substance. Not your favorite food, or what were you doing whenever this happened or that, but a question like that. Why do you think that the Israelis no longer listen to the United States? Oh, this will be interesting to hear her perspective on this. It's very important. She wants to be president of the United States. Israel is theoretically our one ally over there in the Middle East. The perspective of the person asking the question, and I think that it is a question that is grounded in reality. Israel is no longer listening to us. Why do you think this is? Because clearly that's something that is going to be an issue for her if she becomes president. Does she believe it's their fault? Does she think it's miscommunication? Does she disagree with the premise of the question? No, Mr. Whitaker, I happen to disagree. I don't think that's what's going on here. Pretty important situation at hand. Then you take 100 people, play that clip for them, and say, okay, now you're going to be voting. This is a pretty important issue. In your own words, why is it that Kamala Harris feels that Israel is no longer listening to the United States? How many out of 100 do you think would be able to articulate? I don't think any of them, because there's nothing to articulate. Just once. Just once. I'd like for her to sit down in front of someone who's an actual journalist and not an individual whose goal it is to help her get elected, and just flat out say, I'm sorry, that does not even make sense. That does not make sense. Your words that you have strung together do not form a coherent sentence. When I say it does not make sense, I'm not saying that your answer conflicts with reality. I'm saying your answer itself, the words together, are not formulating a thought that can even be evaluated. Imagine how different this country would look if we actually had, in terms of what is viewed by most eyeballs and ears in this country as real journalism, if they actually just did that instead of acting as a campaign wing of the Harris-Walz team. Imagine how different things would look. Oh, I think this week they're going to hit some hard-hitting interviews. Between the two of them, they're going to be on, I think, Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert. So they're going straight to the audience that's looking to be really, truly informed. A1 Custom Car Care for all of those car care needs. You know, after there is a hurricane or a massive flood, a lot of those cars, they get cleaned up, at least on the interior, and they get sent to other parts of the country, all over the country. And they get sold as vehicles that have not been flooded. So you think, well, we don't have to worry about that around. We don't have a tremendous amount of flooding. Those vehicles, they get sent all over. Carfax ain't going to tell you all that stuff. So how do you know? This is where pre-purchase inspection from A1 Custom Car Care comes into play. This is not the government-required making sure everything's functioning properly so that it's road ready. This is more in-depth. Sometimes it could take hours and really get in there and see if there is water or has been water in the engine or any of the other components that can cause either short-term or long-term damage, because you don't want to end up purchasing one of those vehicles not knowing it. And if you know it, and you get them down on the price because of it, that's your call. But knowing that information is what's important, and that's one of the services that is offered by A1 Custom Car Care. Kamala Harris had another moment. Let's see, where was this event? Michigan. You want to hear what happens when Kamala Harris's teleprompter quits working? Here she is in Michigan when just that occurred.
So 32 days. 32 days. Okay, we got some business to do. All right. 32 days. And we know we will do it.
All right, so very, very sharp, very sharp.
3-2.
3-2, 32. Who likes 32?
Can I get a 33?
Yeah, do you like 31? Not as much as 32. Anybody got a 3 and a 2? 32.
2-3.
You look at the difference between it. Listen, Trump does tend to what people would call ramble, and he just is. He's very. He's not a bullet point kind of guy. I mean, he really goes all over the place. He does that when he's doing some sort of speech. But he's a guy that clearly, I mean, just rarely ever uses a teleprompter. Then you have somebody like this. I mean, just is incapable. You should see the look on her face. We'll get the video up. Must read headlines,
yeah.
KSGF.com. Mm-hmm. So you can see it, and you could see it in her face. She's like, oh, I'm in trouble now. You know, I've relayed this story before, and I think George Stephanopoulos wrote about it in his book, but I always found it to be interesting. And it was when Clinton was giving his State of the Union address. It may have been his very first address before Congress. I don't recall. It may not have been. But point being is there was a train derailment that had happened either that day or in the days before. And there were a lot of people who were killed in that train derailment. And he made his way into, he had the sergeant at arms and the president and everybody all applauding and he's shaking hands and everything. Well, during those last moments is one of the Clinton administration at the time was viewed to be kind of a chaotic and disorganized administration, not compared by today's standards, but nonetheless at the time. And so, according to, again, I think it was in Stephanopoulos' book, that the staff was making some last-minute changes to the State of the Union address. And they were doing, like, literally while he's walking there, while he's in the chamber and he's shaking hands, and technology wasn't quite what it was or what it is today back then, but you still had an electronic version of things. And so then they went to upload it so that it would show up on the teleprompters. And it either, like, excuse me, it didn't show up right away, or because of the trying to upload it or download it, it froze in the very beginning of his State of the Union address. So Clinton, and nobody could tell this when it happened. No one could tell this. It stops. Now here he is. He's before all eyes are on him. This isn't a campaign rally where you can start shouting out at people and doing that sort of thing. The world's watching. So he just instinctively calls for a moment of silence for those who lost their lives in that train derailment. And that moment of silence lasted as long as it took in order to get the teleprompter working again. I mean, you think about somebody like that who has the ability to be quick on their feet and who has a confidence, and I don't know that he's as confident as Trump. I don't know that anyone can be as confident as Trump. But Clinton certainly had a confidence about himself, and it's one of the reasons that he was so good with people and, well, some people. But he could do that sort of. You look at how many rungs down the ladder the Democrats have fallen when it comes to the people that they pick for leadership positions. For all of his faults to go from somebody like Bill Clinton, who had the ability to talk, to answer questions, to take answers that might be complicated and simplify them down in a way that really communicates with people off the cuff. The teleprompter's not working. And then you look at what today they deliver up. I mean, Joe Biden, at least you could write it off as, listen, he's got cognitive issues. It's a medical condition. Kamala Harris is just an idiot. 32. right. If you missed any of the show, we have the on-demand section, also Spotify, iTunes. We are streaming on YouTube. You can watch us there. Search Springfield's Talk 1041. You can find it there and watch past programs as well. A whole nother hour ahead we have in store for us, including a service that has been provided. We'll make sure to get it up, get you the details where you can put in your zip code, and it will show you, since the Biden-Harris have come into office, what has happened to your pocketbook. That next. You know, the arms dealer, merchant of death, I believe, is what he was called, that was released in exchange for releasing Brittany Griner, the WNBA player. Evidently, he's back into the game, coordinating arms deals with terrorist organizations like the Houthis. So that was a transaction that worked out in our favor. David Axelrod, former senior advisor, argued that Kamala Harris voters are going to be clever enough to navigate voting in the wake of the devastation from Hurricane Helene, while saying that Trump voters will have a harder time getting to the polls. There's been a lot of concern of Trump voters because a lot of the areas that were disproportionately affected by Hurricane Helene are areas of the country in which are more red. And so I think what David Axelrod actually is doing here, he recognizes that whether it's deliberate or not, but the miserable failure of a response from this administration is going to disproportionately harm Trump supporters and potentially disenfranchise them when it comes to the vote. And I think that this is an attempt to set the stage for essentially saying, well, they're just too dumb to know how to get to the polls when it comes to hurricanes, while the more sophisticated left-wing voters who are Harris supporters, more intelligent, they were able to figure it out. He made the claim during an episode of his podcast, Hacks on Tap, that aired Wednesday, predicting that liberal voters in Asheville, North Carolina, the predominantly blue area in the state, will, quote, figure out a way to vote more than conservatives in the storm aftermath, describing Asheville as a blue dot in the state, saying those voters in Asheville are, they're, the kind of voters that'll figure out a way to vote. They're upscale, kind of liberal voters, and they're probably going to figure out a way to vote. He continued, stating that rural conservatives may not be as resourceful in finding ways to vote following the destruction of their homes and communities, saying, I'm not sure a bunch of these folks who've had their homes and lives destroyed elsewhere in western North Carolina and the mountains there are going to be as easy to wrangle for the Trump campaign. Now, there's a few aspects of this that I think are pretty humorous. One, the fact that he's referring to Trump supporters in red parts of the country, the people that are more about do things with your own hands, self-reliance, that they won't be able to figure out how it is to get their way to the polls, as opposed to the elite liberals whose answer for everything is government tell us how to do it. Let's not forget, this is also a political party who has, generally speaking, though Trump has been changing this, 90 to 95% support amongst the African-American voter. What is the argument against photo ID by people like David Axelrod, the media, and the Democrat Party? It is that these voters are not sophisticated enough to know how to go get a photo ID. So by requiring one of their largest voting blocks to have or show a photo ID in order to vote disenfranchises them because they don't have it in them to understand how to do that. That seems to me a bit of a contradiction from his new assertion here. And he's, playing it up like, well, Democrat, they just, they're able to figure these things out, like how to vote when there may be obstacles in the way where Trump supporters will. Oh, really? Because the entire reason that the Democrat Party claims they're against photo ID is that their voters won't be able to figure out how to get one. They're not that sophisticated. There is a website that has been developed. Do we have this up yet?
No, not yet.
No, not yet.
But I did get my report.
Oh, you did? So this is, well, I'll have you read the report here in a second. There's a site that has been developed, and it is a site that you can enter in your zip code, and it will tell you how much of an increase that the people in your zip code have seen when it comes to or dealing with under the Biden administration, when it comes to gasoline and housing prices and groceries And so you put your zip code in?
Yes.
And what are the results in your zip code?
Okay, so it says the price of gas is up 25%, groceries up 22.2%, rental cost up 21.8%, housing cost up 40%, the average personal credit card debt is up 32.4%, and mortgage interest rates are up 83.3%.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't support more
We're
of
doing
that?
great.
Yeah. I mean, bigger's good, right?
It also says that savings, the personal savings rate has dropped 83% during the Biden-Harris administration. Vacations, 64% of Americans had to scale back vacations in 2024 due to high costs and less budget. And debt, the consumer credit card debt has risen 145%.
I mean, everything's going great. Who would not want to continue on with the Biden-Harris economy? I mean, right? You know, the thing about even the left's reason oftentimes for saying, nope, hate Trump too much, hate those tweets so much, I'd rather this punishing economy continue that is devastating, particularly to the lower and middle class. You know, the Taylor Swift's, Oprah Winfrey's, again, not so much, but for the average American. The thing about to even acknowledge their argument as if it somehow is reasonable, and, you know, well, we just don't like the things that he tweets out. You know, he still tweets. That's just because you're not president any longer doesn't mean that he doesn't still do it. Well, yeah, but at least he's not president. Now, if your problem are the tweets, and you still act as if it's the worst thing in the world when he tweets something or whatever. What do they call it now? I know it's called X, but what is it called when you do it?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think it still is tweeting out. I don't know.
I don't know either. It's all very confusing. Who can figure out the mind of Elon Musk? Have some audio. Okay, a bit of what we're going to hear in the upcoming hour is the media defending the government instead of reporting on the victims, downplaying the victims of the hurricane, running to the defense of government. That is their default. Also, they are spreading disinformation, claiming it's disinformation to say that FEMA funds have been going to illegals. So we've got, some audio of Karine Jean-Pierre a couple of years ago from the White House talking about FEMA dollars being diverted to illegal migrants in the United States. You know, these people are so dishonest, so dishonest. They act like Republicans just to make this stuff up. Well, you made up that borders are stuff. No. Oh, you made up this stuff about money going to illegals instead of, that FEMA's diverting money. No. Here's where we got it from. We got it from Karine Jean-Pierre. We got it from, let's see here. This is one of the headlines. New York Times. This is from 2021. Biden administration directs FEMA to help shelter migrant children. And it's a whole story about how dollars are being funneled out of FEMA to these shelters. And one of the concerns that was noted by a whiny Republican in the New York Times piece is, well, what happens if there's some sort of hurricane emergency? Oh, that's silliness now, isn't it? Oh. I guess the plan at the time was, well, if that happens, we'll just lie and claim that we never diverted the funds. And this is where we are. Also, SNL having a little bit of fun with the vice presidential debate. We've got some of that audio also. Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line 447-KSGF. Or, better yet, download the KSGF app, Springfield's Talk 1041. Find the app that way, download it, and then you don't have to remember the talk and text line number. You can just tap a button.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 75. Tonight, clear with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 76. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80.
I mentioned earlier, and is that up now?
It is,
okay.
yes.
So the thing that you put in your zip code and then it gives you back in your zip code area, this is how much under the Biden-Harris administration your costs have gone up, and it breaks them down into categories. You do the way that it works is you enter you give them your email and then they send the report. It's almost instantly. I'm guessing that puts you on their email list. I don't know. I haven't gotten an email since I did it, but so it just so you do it. If you're looking for it and you're like, I don't see where to do it. There's is it the front page? Scroll down a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. And so you will need to give your name and your email address, and then you'll get that report sent to you in your email. Congressman Burleson is with us. I thought, if you don't mind, start off, you and I can listen to a little bit of audio together. SNL, this is a clip from, I don't know if it was the cold open or not, but this is a depiction of Kamala and her husband watching the vice presidential debate.
He's out there, he's doing his thing, whatever that may be.
Come on, just relax. You know, you haven't had a night off in 3 months. Do you want to watch something less stressful like the Menendez Brothers show?
Dougie, I kind of wish I had picked Josh right now.
Oh, Josh Shapiro?
No, Josh. Kaepernick.
Look, Titt'll be fine. It's not like he's going to say something crazy.
Become friends with school shooters.
And then there is another clip here in which the moderator, this is SNL, is asking Tim Walz about his lie in which he claimed he was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Claimed you were in Hong Kong during the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre when you were home in Minnesota. Can you explain that?
So I think what happened is I went to Epcot. You can go around the whole world, and I had a couple in the Germany section, and I thought I went to China. Anyway, I'm a knucklehead.
Your thoughts on that debate? I know it was about a week ago. We haven't talked to you since then, though. Congressman Burleson.
That's a really funny sketch. What's kind of missed on the audio is that, because I watched it whenever the other night, and it whenever he says the phrase that I've become friends with the shooters, and she her wine glass, she just shatters it in her hand.
Right. Yeah.
And crushes it.
Well, go ahead.
I think that the debate, the next day I kind of thought, in that night I was thinking, in general, most people don't. This is not going to affect anybody. And I still think that. I don't think that anyone's going to change their mind based on how JD or Waltz performed. The one thing that Waltz did, in hindsight, that may have had an impact is that he said, whenever they asked him one of the questions, I think it was the question about whether he was at Tiananmen Square, he said that he grew up in a working class family. And when you open with that, it's almost like he was starting a Saturday Night Live sketch making fun of Kamala, because that's been her response to a very difficult question.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good soundbite that you can guarantee is going to be used by the GOP in attack ads against Kamala.
I saw this is all. I'm going to ask you a little bit about the situation with the hurricane floods, but I was driving down. You may know this. Driving down Sunshine, West Sunshine, and there's that Sinclair station, and there's a Burleson sign out front, but it's not just a sign. This had to have been custom made. It's also it's like a life-sized cutout of you with two other people that are like holding the sign. I laughed when I saw that.
Yeah, that was a fun thing we did. We had access to a color printer, a corrugated plastic color printer, and so we were at an event. I was hosting the event, and we asked people if they wanted to do this, and so people would take pictures holding a sign, and then we later on had to print it and cut it out. Now those are from a previous election, so I don't know where they're at, but they're still out there. People are still using them.
Oh yeah, I thought it was funny. I as I was approaching, I thought, well, what is that? And then when I realized it gave me a good laugh.
So where is this one at? Sinclair Station?
It's at Sinclair Station on it's just the one as you pass, if you're going west on Sunshine, past Kansas Expressway. It's on the north side of the road. Yeah, it's in the lawn there in front of it. So there's been a lot of just fallout, if you will, about the reaction or lack thereof from this administration when it comes to these rescue attempts. It has largely been portrayed by volunteers on the ground and some of the victims as not a simple instance of negligence, but actually getting in the way of people who are trying to help. You had individuals, volunteers using drones to drop life-saving medications and insulin to people, and Pete Buttigieg out there essentially declaring a no-fly zone, telling them to quit. There have been volunteers using their helicopters. There was a local news report out of South Carolina in which it was all about a volunteer who was saving people who were stranded, and he was threatened with arrest until he just had to abandon people. And of course now they're all in total defense and cover mode over the weekend, watching these networks that their number one priority is not defending the victims, but it's defending FEMA and the government. It is atrocious what's occurring.
I think that what everyone should keep in mind is that this is what you can expect from government. When you put your trust in government to be there to provide aid to you can't trust federal government to do anything competently, and yet people continue to believe that that's the case. I mean, look at what's happening. The private sector is the one that's stepping in this is exactly what happened in the Joplin tornado.
Right.
FEMA didn't come in and do the, you know, provide food and water and shelter and all that stuff. It was really, ultimately, it was the private sector that stepped up and provided so many people from this area, from Springfield, really went down and volunteered and did cleanup. I know I was part of a group that did that. And then where FEMA stepped in is at the very end, they would come in with trash trucks and pick up what people had cleaned up and put to the curbside.
Yeah.
So they did have some involvement, but usually it was not what people expect it to be. And so I think that government gives people a false hope that they're going to be there to protect them, keep everybody safe. And the truth is, it is a false hope.
Well, and the real damage that's done is that false hope also leads to people that perhaps otherwise would step up thinking, hey, I need to get in there and help these people. But then they think, oh, well, no, FEMA will take care of it. The government will take care of it. So it really compounds the problem because then there are less people who are the most effective at helping. And one of the things that we know is that when it comes to truly helping people, individual volunteers are the most effective, and then, of course, collectively, oftentimes, they will assemble together under private organizations. But when it comes to the least effective, the slowest, most inefficient, and expensive form of helping people, it's government. And so what is so damaging is that as government demands to be the ultimate authority in these things, and some people believe it, we lose the numbers of people who are most effective at helping others while growing the size of the institution that is the least effective.
Yeah, that's right. So we're taking taxpayer dollars that could otherwise go, people could donate to an organization like Convoy of Hope, who is effective with the dollars. Instead, we're forcing it to go to these bloated government bureaucracies that will spend it on superfluous things, and sometimes will divert funds and towards things like helping to migrate illegal immigrants across the United States.
Well, that's not true. I mean, I watched the Karine Jean-Pierre and listened to Dana Bash and Tim Cotton was on NBC. And I mean, you listen to all the news anchors, and according to them, that's all disinformation.
Right. But the truth is that, when in making the requests for funds, they requested all of this, a lot of the money that would normally go to FEMA, that it be earmarked for the illegal immigration. That has been the case since the Pelosi administration. That money started being migrated towards processing illegal immigrants. And then, sadly, the Republican Party, because we get in the fights, we can't pass our own budget. We end up doing these continuing resolutions.
Yeah.
So it's a result of the Pelosi budgeting process, and it's their decision to send more money towards this towards processing illegal immigrants than to put money in FEMA. And one of the concerns, to your point, is that they crowd out the people that can go in and help. So they really, I've gotten reports from people that have family members or friends who live in the area that is affected, and they will tell me stories like, that FEMA blocked access or has stopped them from being able to go back to their home, or whenever they requested help from FEMA, the FEMA's response was, well, we started to drive to your property, but then there was a road closure sign and we had to turn around. Well, everyone's driving through, doing what they have to do, which is get through those. But yet FEMA is, it's a bloated bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got some citizens, and it's strange that FEMA is requesting, if they go to look at someone's property, they're requesting to know where the firearms are located. If you have firearms, and where they're located. Well, that's obviously sends people, a lot of people are paranoid.
Well, of course, and rightfully so.
Yes.
Congressman Burleson. Before we let you go, it was a year ago, October 7th. I know we spoke with you after you spent some time over there in Israel, I think specifically even at the site of that festival in which so many of those people who are simply there to, I think it was a festival even that was all about coexisting, and then you had Hamas coming in and parachuting in and just slaughtering people, taking people, some of which are still hostages today. And any thoughts on this being 1 year since?
Yeah. You know, to go see the aftermath of it, and it was horrific. And no one can tell me that Israel is the aggressor in this situation. When you walk through neighborhoods who were, surprised and attacked, and all the, the children that would normally be playing in the playgrounds are either kidnapped or dead. That's you cannot tell me that Israel was the one that started this conflict. That they're clearly, Iran hates them. They have been funding terrorist groups in Hamas and Hezbollah for all these years, and this is the result. And the truth is, the real evil, the real man behind the curtain is Iran, and it's good that they finally have been exposed. And I hope that Israel does what's necessary to neutralize Iran.
Well, so far they have done a lot more than the, sadly, international community, including this administration, has wanted them to do. So that's a sign that at least they are willing, when it really comes down to it, Netanyahu in charge at least, to do what is necessary to save the Jewish people and non-Jewish people of Israel. Congressman Burleson, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, ran a little behind, so we're going to jump straight to traffic, then get an update on the weather. Do want to play some audio and get you updates on the latest in terms of a hurricane. There's, I hope, an awakening for a lot of Americans that, particularly under this administration, if you are stranded, you are abandoned, the government is not going to come help you. And once upon a time when that occurred, the media would be the first to highlight the damage that does, but the media today is instead running propaganda cover for the government in abandoning the American people by claiming that it is dangerous to question their response. It is disinformation to point out where it is that they are failing. I think every American, left, right, up, down, backwards, has to understand that with the current people running things, if you are in trouble, you will not be able to rely on this government.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 75. Tonight, clear with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 76. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80.
According to the director of FEMA, the administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the true victims aren't those who are still stranded due to the hurricane, those who have lost family members, their homes, their livelihoods. It is the FEMA employees whose feelings get hurt whenever they are criticized. In an interview on ABC's This Week, Deanne Criswell addressed criticism over the government's response to Hurricane Helene, warning that the false narrative spread online about the agency's handling of the hurricane could hinder FEMA's recovery efforts. Now, notice criticism, which ultimately is opinion, is deemed false by the government in this instance. This is the death of free speech. See, you're not allowed an opinion. There's true and there's false, and their opinion is true. She told George Stephanopoulos, quote, "It has a tremendous impact on the comfort level of our employees to be able to go out there, but it's also demoralizing to FEMA staff and volunteers. I need to make sure I can get the resources to where they're needed, and when you have this dangerous rhetoric like you're hearing, it creates fear for our employees." So, again, the number one priority is, in this case, the feelings of FEMA. How dare you criticize FEMA when they block people from, as volunteers, providing food and water and medicines to individuals? How dare you? Don't you understand the feelings of our employees? This is very triggering to them. Many of them are already having to go into areas where there's wood and dirt and mud, and that by itself is a huge obstacle for so many of our employees. Florida State Guardsmen on the ground in North Carolina slamming government response to Helene, quote, "complete failure of leadership." Regarding the $750, saying that Biden can take his $750, it's a joke. He said, these people are trapped in the mountains. What are they going to do? Order something? There's no way for it to even be delivered to their house. It's a complete failure of leadership. Everything comes down to leadership, and there's no leadership here. There's no command and control. No one has a clue what's going on. Now, it's reasonable to recognize that there probably are some people, perhaps, maybe, in a situation where they are somewhere and they are, now maybe with family, friends, their home has been wiped away, and they, maybe they don't have any money in their bank account for some reason, and so that $750 could conceivably help. The problem is this administration leads with that as if that is the answer. That $750, it might help some people in certain situations, but that's not really priority number one right now. He went on to, of course, criticize as part of the problem the fact that Biden has claimed that the storm victims are getting everything that they need, and they're very happy with the response. This is, again, conveying the message that everything's fine, everything's taken care of. The guardsmen also noted that private citizens are running the show in many of the affected areas, and that leadership in Florida, on the other hand, handled the situation far more effectively than in other areas, saying, quote, "I knew where my governor was before the hurricane, during the hurricane, and after. Then he actually sent me up here to help them fix their problems, but these people have no clue. There's just no command here at all. Everything we're getting, all of our information off of Facebook and private citizen groups. He also noted he was initially denied entry when he made his way to North Carolina to aid in recovery efforts, though the blame for the blockage was passed along by several agencies. Well, of course it was, because that's what government tends to do, and this administration in particular, it's never their responsibility. He went on to note, I saw some Air Force Black Hawks. There were a pair of rescue men. These guys are all rescue specialist paramedics. I went up to them, started talking to them, exchanged intel, and they're like, we want to go fly, but we can't. We're waiting on our Title X orders. And I was like, what? And then I have so many military friends of mine saying they can't even get authorization to come here. And there's so many military here. I have guardsmen. I have active duty. They're all messaging me, pilot commanders of pilot divisions, helicopter pilots, and they're like, we can't even get authorization to go help. But don't you dare criticize that, because according to this administration, that is dangerous. You have a deputy in North Carolina warning people, do not help or do not donate to FEMA. The people of Lebanon facing, that's okay. We'll get to that in a moment. So you've got increasingly people, some of them are law enforcement. This is North Carolina deputy warning people who want to help, do not do it through FEMA. Stay away from FEMA. Increasingly, volunteers that are gathering up different donations, water, medicine, so forth. They're being advised, do not go through FEMA. Increased instances of volunteers noting that FEMA is confiscating stuff and taking it who knows where. There are rumors about where it goes, some saying that it's going down to the border. The fact of the matter is it is being taken, and FEMA is acting not just, they're a hindrance, they're a roadblock. I want to play some audio, particularly of Tom Cotton. Now, you had, over the weekend, the media out there claiming none of this is true about aid being diverted to illegals, that FEMA has not been doing that. This is all disinformation. The problem is it's this very media that just a couple of years ago was reporting on the fact that FEMA was doing that. If you have received in the email or in the mail, rather, or by way of email, offers regarding refinancing or home loans that might seem a little like, I don't know, this seems too good to be true. A lot of times, some of those offers, they are possible, but it requires a lot from you. It requires stuff from you that the average person isn't going to be able to do, and so it's one of those very rare circumstances. Point being is that any of that info you get a hold of the characters and their team. iwantagreathomeloan.com, and they can explain to you, okay, well, here's what you're looking at with that, and they can also let you know, if you want, what it is that they can do for you and what they can find for you. Maybe you already have in place some sort of offer, if you will, because you have your financial institution that you've long had all of your refinancing done through. Get a second look at it with the Carricker team, and maybe you'll find that you can get a better deal, or maybe not, but at least then you know. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. This is Tom Cotton, and he is dealing with the coordinated disinformation campaign from the Democrats and the media regarding FEMA. And so, much like the last election, of course, or the last presidential election, FEMA is doing everything wonderfully. This administration is doing everything. According to Joe Biden, no one needs anything. This is what he said on Saturday when asked after he visited the hurricane victims. What is it that he saw? What do the people need? He said nothing. They're very happy, and they have everything they need. That is the official position from this White House, and it was clearly being parroted by the media over the weekend. Here's Tom Cotton dealing with that with Kirsten Welker on NBC.
Broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
It is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. Now, I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
That's absolutely true. Student loans is a good example. They have no problem. Sex operations for kids or, anything that they want. No problem at all. I got a pin. Executive order. I think the verbiage he used, which is accurate, is also very telling because he noted the reality of, boy, when it's their priority, they have no trouble finding the money whatsoever. And the reason that's telling is because this is not a priority. This is not a priority. You know what is a priority? Here's a story. Biden-Harris administration touts keeping power on in Ukraine amid U.S. outages. Samantha Power, Biden-Harris administration, U.S. Agency for International Development Administrator, posted a video on Friday, this past Friday. Quote, how Americans are helping Ukraine keep the lights and the heat on. As nearly 700,000 American homes and businesses suffer from power outages in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Power said in the video, I'm here in an energy substation in the western region of Ukraine. The substation provided enough power for around 500,000 residents in the area. I'm standing in front of an auto transformer that used to provide power, but that Putin's forces destroyed back in 2022. So this administration is actively putting out videos within the last several days bragging about helping the victims of people without electricity in Ukraine. Another story. Harris touts $157 million for civilians in Lebanon, while many Helene victims wait for relief. On Saturday, touting that she and President Joe Biden were sending $157 million in humanitarian aid to civilians in Lebanon. This after announcing $750 per person for those who are suffering here in America. She posted, the people of Lebanon, this is her exact post, the people of Lebanon are facing an increasingly dire humanitarian situation. I'm concerned about the security and well-being of civilians suffering in Lebanon and will continue working to help meet the needs of all civilians there. This is in the middle of what's going on here in the United States. And that's what Tom Cotton's talking about. Boy, they have no problem doling out cash when it's their priority, when it's illegals, when it's Ukrainians, when it's the Lebanese. And while there's nothing wrong with those people and nothing wrong with wanting to help those people, we kind of have some problems going on right here in the good old U.S. of A. Dana Bash on CNN, I'm not going to play the audio of it, but similar. I mean, it's as if they all have their talking points. Well, don't you think you should put politics aside and quit spreading disinformation that, FEMA's been using tax dollars to fund illegals instead? I mean, it's just clearly disinformation. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre just 2 years ago.
So FEMA regional administrators have been meeting with city officials on site to coordinate available federal support from FEMA and other federal agencies. Funding is also available through FEMA's emergency food and shelter program to eligible local governments and non-for-profit organizations upon request to support humanitarian relief for migrants.
Oh, that's where Republicans got it. New York Times piece, 2021, Biden administration directs FEMA to help shelter migrant children. The agency will help provide basic care as criticism mounts over the treatment of increasing number of young migrants who have filled detention facilities in the southwest border. The Biden administration directing FEMA to assist in processing an increasing number of children and teenagers who have filled the detention facilities. FEMA, which normally provides financial assistance during natural disasters, will instead help find shelter space and provide food, water, and basic medical care to thousands of young migrants, Michael Haar, spokesman for the agency, said in a statement. Further into the New York Times story, you have a quote from Representative John Katko, a Republican of New York, said that if FEMA was involved, it's a disaster by definition. Quote, I have a serious concern that this will strain a FEMA workforce and budget that is already spread thin with a pandemic response ongoing in the Atlantic hurricane season less than 3 months away. So you had, quote, critics noting that maybe we shouldn't be using these FEMA funds for illegals because there will be hurricanes that hit this country. And then that money won't be there. Of course, the New York Times just gives them a quote, refers to them as a critic. Now, those very same critics are saying, yeah, this is what we were talking about. And they're being told that never happened. What are you talking about? Oh, no, it's just disinformation. Just like Kamala Harris was never the border czar. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. There have been a lot of comparisons to the way that the media covered Hurricane Katrina versus how they're covering this, where everything was victim-focused, and then why aren't you doing more to the government? Now it is protecting the government. The government is the victim, and all of these complainers out there are just dangerously hurting the feelings of employees of FEMA. But what we forget is there was a massive FEMA response from Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico in 2017. And the media was full-blown focused on the victims and just ripping Donald Trump for not responding more quickly. Now, of course, I forgot the amount of time, but it would take a lot of time because, you got to put things on boats and actually get them there. And there were a lot of issues with infrastructure. And we didn't even, here in the United States, everywhere we have the military, we have all of the infrastructure here possible to, be within close proximity of these areas. Well, Puerto Rico, it wasn't a similar situation. So you have those additional obstacles. But Trump was never given any sort of grace for that. And one of the biggest complaints is that the victims weren't getting the supplies. Why is Trump failing to get the victims the supplies? Now, we would find out that you had black market people, that the supplies were getting there, and they were being hoarded in warehouses. But the media used that in order, look at the victims, look at the victims, look at Trump, and now it's full court press, defend FEMA, defend Harris all the way. Victims be damned. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.